For most people, Peter Pan is the cheerful Disney character who runs with the Lost Boys, courageously battles Captain Hook, and beautifully reminds us to never grow up. But long before Disney introduced him to the big screen, J.M. Barrie described Peter differently. He was betwixt and between, neither fully a boy nor fully a man, suspended between two worlds, the place he inhabits, Neverland. In Barrie's work, Neverland represents a place of transition, where time, coordinates, and direction don't fully exist. It is what anthropologists call a liminal space, a threshold, a gateway, and in between. A place where the old identity no longer fits, but the new one has not yet emerged. Liminal spaces are naturally unsettling because they lack coordinates. Time can feel distorted. Direction becomes unclear or lacks entirely. The landmarks you've relied on disappear before new ones have formed. Questions naturally emerge. How much longer will this last? Where exactly are we trying to go? How do we know if we're making progress? The more conversations I have with leaders across different organizations, the more I find myself thinking that we are all living in a liminal space. We are experiencing our own version of Neverland, not because the future is magical, but because we are caught between worlds. The world we understood is beginning to disappear, while the next one has not fully arrived. But before we go any further, let me take a minute to introduce myself if you are new here. My name is Chris Schmelzer, and I serve leaders who recognize the need and understand that the old models of leading and working are no longer keeping up with the pace of change. Every week, I track the subtle signals that a massive reset is coming for what we refer to as white-collar work, and share thoughts on how to lead yourself and your organization through the age of accelerating change. If you find any value in this video, like it, share your comments below, and subscribe. This week, I listened to Ray Kurzweil discuss artificial intelligence with Tony Robbins. Kurzweil has spent over 60 years studying exponential technological change, and over that time predicted with 86% accuracy when and what will happen. He suggests that by 2029, the world we inhabit will be completely different. Now that might be hard to fully imagine, but that is exactly it. We are in the liminal space. One point from the conversation has stayed with me. He believes we have entered the steep part of the exponential curve, meaning that the changes ahead won't simply continue from here, but they will compound. Whether his timeline proves exactly right is almost beside the point. The larger observation feels difficult to ignore. The pace of change itself is accelerating. If that's true, then this liminal space we have entered won't be a brief transition. It may become the defining condition of the next several years, which changes the question. Instead of asking, when will things settle down? Perhaps we should be asking, how do we become better at living inside uncertainty? A few weeks ago, I had the privilege of participating on a panel discussing AI in the workplace. The audience was made up of primarily business leaders, trying to understand how to responsibly introduce AI into their organizations. Going into the discussion, I expected most of the questions to revolve around tools, use cases, or implementation. They didn't. The conversation kept returning to policy. The audience's curiosity revolved around questions like, how should we update our AI policy? What should employees be allowed to use? What data shouldn't they share? Where does responsibility ultimately belong? While I was in the conversation, I thought it was about governance. Now, a week removed, and upon extended reflection, I don't believe these business leaders were really asking about policy. I think they were asking, what are the rules now? None of the panelists had definitive answers, and that is the point. The more I reflect on it, the more I realize that's exactly what people do in liminal spaces. Because liminal spaces don't come with instruction manuals. When the old world begins disappearing, we instinctively search for new landmarks. We want clear boundaries, definite coordinates, rules that tell us we're standing on solid ground again, which is going to make this period challenging. Because for many of us, the guidelines we have grown up with are falling away. During the panel, I found myself thinking about the book We Are as Gods by Peter Diamandis and Stephen Kotler. Near the end of the book, they propose 10 commandments for living in the age of AI. At first, I simply appreciated the advice, but after reflecting on the panel discussion, I realized something else. I don't think the significance lies in the commandments themselves, even though they are worth checking out. I think it lies in the fact that the authors anticipate we're already looking for commandments. Throughout history, whenever humanity has entered unfamiliar territory, we've searched for principles before we found certainty. This is why we create constitutions, establish norms, or write commandments. Not because those documents eliminate uncertainty, but because they give us something to orient ourselves around while certainty is still forming. The commandments from the book are aimed to do this, and I would encourage you to review them for yourself. At a high level, they strongly encourage us to preserve discernment, to keep creating, to continue thinking for ourselves. They're really about preserving the human capacities we'll need while everything else is changing. I agree with every one of the ideas Diamandis and Kotler lay out, but the ideas also raised another question for me. What actually allows a human being to do those things when uncertainty is high? I recognize that the modern organization has always relied on project plans, phases, milestones, steering committees, and governance structures to guide transformation and attempt to reduce uncertainty. Those things matter. They've always helped us navigate periods of change. But here's what I've been realizing. The difference now is that organizations are no longer transforming inside a relatively stable society. Society itself is transforming, and this transformation will accelerate. In many ways, our organizations are becoming microcosms of a much larger transformation. Here's the thing. We are all looking for maps, but maps don't eliminate liminal spaces. They simply are an attempt to help us move through them, which raises a more fundamental question. If we can't eliminate the uncertainty, what actually determines whether we experience that uncertainty as possibility or as threat? Today, most leaders are trying to guide people through uncertainty while standing in uncertainty themselves, which may explain why so many teams feel exhausted, disengaged, burned out, overwhelmed, and operating with fragmented attention. It isn't simply the amount of change washing over us. It's that we're trying to navigate without stable landmarks. And here's what I think many of us overlook. We tend to think uncertainty is first experienced by the mind, so we aim to create better plans, clearer communication, stronger governance structures, more detailed maps, if you will, but we are looking in the wrong place. Because uncertainty is first experienced by the body. Before we consciously decide whether a changing environment feels exciting or threatening, our nervous system has already begun interpreting it. The body reacts first. The mind tells the story afterward, which means many of the stories we tell ourselves about uncertainty are actually explanations for physiological states we've already entered. For the last year, I've written repeatedly that nervous system awareness may become one of the defining leadership capabilities of the AI era. The more I study artificial intelligence, the more convinced I become. Not because regulating your nervous system makes uncertainty disappear. It doesn't. But it literally changes your relationship with uncertainty. A dysregulated nervous system interprets uncertainty as danger. In return, attention narrows, and we naturally see less possibility. Urgency becomes misinterpreted, and we rush decisions, when curiosity might have served us better. On the other side, a regulated nervous system does something entirely different. It expands your capacity to remain present while the answers are still forming. Rather than narrowing your attention toward threat, it broadens your perspective, making room for curiosity, discernment, and better judgment. It also increases your willingness to move forward before every coordinate becomes visible. It helps you tolerate the absence of a map without assuming you're lost. Perhaps that's what leaders will need most over the next decade, not perfect predictions or complete data, not complete maps or well-defined project plans, but enough internal stability that they don't require external certainty before taking the next step. In the J.M. Barrie classic, Peter and Wendy, it was being betwixt and between. Today, we might simply call it leadership. If you want to explore how to lead yourself and your organization through the age of accelerating change, my new book, The Missing Link offers a new lens. It shows why most change efforts stall and how human capacity, not just strategy, determines success. Once you see it, you'll lead change very differently. You can access it for free right now. Link is below the video.